You smell what the Rock is cooking.
Acknowledge me.
You don't know what hard times are, Daddy.
We are bad to the bone. Get it? Bad to the bone.
Tell me when I'm telling lies.
I'll fight anybody. Who do you want? Just let me fight him.
Let me tell you something, Jim Ross.
Mega power, yeah.
Logan, we got it for you.
We are the best of the best.
Woo! Wheeling, dealing. Smart marks.
And that's the bottom line, cause Stone Cold said so.
Welcome to another episode of Talking in the Building podcast, the podcast where we talk about the pro wrestling promo. I'm here joined by my companions, my compatriots, my compadres. We got Greg, we got Adrian. What's up, fellas? How you feeling? How you living today?
Good, bro. How you doing?
I'm all right, hanging in there.
Nice.
Been long days lately, for sure.
Yeah, hell yeah. Getting back into the full swing of things, man. I'm feeling good. This is a awesome topic. It's combining two of my favorites, so I'm stoked. I'm running on fumes, but I'm stoked. I'm ready to rock and roll.
Yeah, I'm there with you, man. I mean, we got the kickoff of football season. Of course, we kind of have a lot of anticipation in the pro wrestling world of the fall, all the changes in WWE. Hopefully, a new TV deal for AEW. So it's just an exciting time for us because I know we all love football. We all love wrestling. That's what we're here for.
Amen.
100%. And it's a beautiful marriage because we've seen it time and time again. And if you're new to the show or any return listeners, thank you for joining us again. This is Talking in the Building. This is where we talk about the talkers, we hype the hype men, and we pontificate on the promo. And tonight we're going to take a little of a left turn right into the biggest football stadium you've ever seen in your life. Tonight we're talking about the Gridiron Smack Talkers. And these could be football players that maybe had a little bit of a cup of coffee in a pro wrestling match or two, or a company, if you will. And kind of those memories start flooding through my mind of the pro wrestlers that, we'll focus on the ones that had a bit of a smaller stint, but I'm thinking back to those wrestlers that made it a career, right? That had their careers cut short in a lot of times, and they flourished, and they were given the baton, they ran with it.
They were given the ball.
What's that?
They were given the ball.
They were given the ball. There you go. The baton, the ball, the football. And they ran with it. They ran a 100-yard return. And we're talking about like a Ron Simmons, we're talking about a Rock. Got to remember, he completely floundered in the Canadian Football League. We're talking about a Bill Goldberg. Who are those kind of standouts for you guys as we're kind of diving into football season that, wow, like I never thought this guy was going to be this premier person in football?
Yeah, I think the key there is when you say premier person in football, that's where I think what we're going to kind of dive into a little bit more is that most of these guys had a stint in football. They had a good college career, jumped to the USFL like Luger or Ron Simmons, or they went to the CFL like you touched on, The Rock, and they didn't have good pro careers or any pro career really. You think about a Bill Goldberg. He was all SEC at University of Georgia, and then he goes to the Falcons, and he self-admitted said he wasn't good enough to stay in the NFL. He was what he was, right?
Right.
You look at a Baron Corbin. You look at these guys who have had that cup of coffee, made some money in the NFL, but then found their true calling within the pro wrestling gimmick. And there's just so many of them out there. It's just interesting to think. I mean, you think about. Go back to WrestleMania 2. You had a battle royal that had Bill Fralick from the Atlanta Falcons. You had William the Refrigerator Perry. You had all these other guys in it. You jump to a SummerSlam later on, and you have Walter Payton involved.
Yeah.
And all these guys and then you start to see, like the most recent WrestleMania, you had Kelsey. And so it's like there's so much crossover there as far as fandom that there's a lot of guys who want to jump into the ring. And there's a lot of guys who just aren't going to take that chance. I mean, I don't know if you guys remember back in TNA, you had Adam Pac-Man Jones trying to jump into the ring, and all of a sudden the Titans were like, whoa, hold up, this ain't going to happen. Yeah. And I was at that Bound for Glory when he was supposed to be teaming with R-Truth, and it was like, he ain't getting in this ring. He's not going to chance that. So you just think about how many guys have jumped in there and there's so much crossover between fandom. Not necessarily crossover just in the ring, but crossover fandom.
Definitely. Some guys that really stand out to me. I was this close to bringing a Pac-Man Jones promo, by the way. So kudos to you for bringing up my fellow Atlanta guy, Pac-Man. But yeah, man, the connection between football or American football and professional wrestling is a strong one. You go all the way back to guys like Million Dollar Man Ted DiBiase, Tully Blanchard, Dusty Rhodes, Dirty Dick Slater. All of those guys played football at a higher level. They weren't the best players. They were pretty mediocre players, but it translated perfectly to professional wrestling. Even today, when you think about the most popular wrestlers currently right now, Roman Reigns, MJF, both of those guys played college football. Roman played for Georgia Tech. He was a captain on that team. And I specifically remember him because those were my peak go to Georgia Tech games just to be an asshole deal because of guys that I knew that were on that team. But he was on that team. High performer. MJF played football at a higher level, and also someone that people don't really like talking about, but hell, this podcast is about promos. Enzo Amore.
Yeah.
He played football. He played college football, and that's really working out with other pro wrestlers got him into the business, at least listening to his story. So the connection between pro wrestling and American football is definitely a strong one and easy because the translation, you got big athletic guys. Yeah. You go from football, it makes sense, man. It makes perfect sense.
Although to be fair, I've heard the stories of so many football players that, they're ringside, they're there for the show and they're buddies with some of the wrestlers. Like, come in and take a bump. That is enough to swear any man off ever wanting to try professional wrestling. That mat is not forgiving. Funny, I think this is a worthwhile story to tell, but I always think back to a Colt Cabana who famously went to college, I think for a D2 or D3 school, to play football because he thought he had a better chance of being a pro wrestler and being signed by WWE because that's what Jim Ross was looking for, is ex-football players or collegiate football players.
Makes perfect sense.
And then he drops out and his parents are super annoyed about it. And obviously he still becomes a pro wrestler, but that really sets us up for tonight at looking at some of the, shorter stints of professional football players who tried their hand or, had that cup of coffee in the pro wrestling world, but in no small manner left their mark, right? And they think that's what's going to be fascinating about tonight. We all brought someone different, so y'all in for a treat. And I'm happy to get the festivities going for tonight with football. And I did bring a promo from one of, if not the, without reservation, greatest tight ends in NFL history, a 4-time Super Bowl champ, a 5-time Pro Bowler, who spent most of his career with one team. This is one Rob Gronkowski.
You think you're an up-and-coming superstar? You haven't even stepped in the ring yet with this monster. You never faced someone with the arms of this size, with the guns that scare even children that can't even see properly yet, baby. Ah! That's how scary I am, baby. I'll even take a chair right over your freaking head if you try stepping in this ring. So let's go. Bring it on and come with the big dogs, baby. Woo!
Should be very interesting.
It's very short, but it's so good. It's so good. Yeah. It's like remember we had the muted TV test that if you mute the TV and you're walking by, he would hit it out of the park because you can tell he's watched pro wrestling so much, so intently. He's one of those kids that sat there and probably got babysat by pro wrestling.
Absolutely.
And he's hitting all the cues, and he runs out of promo halfway through. 15 seconds in, he runs out of words. He doesn't know what the hell else to say. Something, children. but he knows the solution because he's seen it time and time again. He yells louder, he starts spinning around like Macho Man, and he rips off his shirt because we know that's money. I know that's money, and whoever put this together, I want to give you a tip or something because I was incredibly entertained by Rob Gronkowski. I don't ever saw this kind of personality on the actual show with WWE. So
nice.
If he ever makes a return, he needs to take on the Gronkosaurus here. Fellas, what are your thoughts? What are your reactions to Gronkosaurus when maybe a Luchasaurus Gronkosaurus set up here?
That was hilarious, man. That was my first time seeing that, and like you said, you could tell that he's a student of the game for sure. Hitting on a lot of the mannerisms of the popular era of professional wrestling that got a lot of us locked in, where the golden era, where those were the promos that really made a lot of us lifetime fans. And you could tell he was just doing an impression of a Hulk Hogan / Macho Man type deal. But he looks the part, man. Gronk would be a perfect addition to any professional company if he were to actually take it serious.
Yeah.
Because he has a personality. He's a party boy. He looks the part. God, we just saw it. And, he has some clout. Like that, all of those things together would make him, I think, a successful wrestler. And no one can say that he's not athletic. I mean, he's a damn Hall of Famer at this point. So, yeah, man. I do like the edit at the end, the additional point to bring it all together. Like that was quality. So that's a dope one.
That's awesome.
For sure. I love the whole throwback piece with the green screen, with the Gronkosaurus across the back. Like you said, channeling a little bit of Macho Man, a little bit of Hogan, but a lot of Warrior. When he was like you said, he ran out of stuff to say, he went straight Warrior. It was like just talk nonsense for the next 30 seconds or whatever it is. I mean, the throwback on that was perfect. The edit back to Sean Mooney was like, oh wow, this was perfect. I had never seen that either. That's hilarious.
No.
Like, I've always been surprised that he didn't come back after that. Like, he had signed that deal, then decided to go to Tampa, and then he just never came back. So I don't know if that's he who must not be named is no longer there, and they don't want to go down that path anymore, or what. But man, just seeing that tells you, dude has all the tools, right? Because he gets it. Cutting a promo like that, being an All-Pro, arguably one of the greatest, tight ends of all time,
definitely,
and standing there, kind of making fun of yourself, stepping into a character that's not necessarily you, and just having fun, knowing it's going to get out there. I mean, that tells you he gets it.
That lack of kind of that fearlessness, right? That a lot of people struggle with. You can decide to be a pro wrestler tomorrow, but if you're too caught up in your head, you're not gonna let that filter down. And he clearly that's. I mean, also being able to perform in giant stadiums is gonna also make you not afraid, and you can leverage that into pro wrestling.
Speaking of leverage, I know that Gronk was supposedly friends with Mojo Rawley.
Very good friends.
Do you all think that if Gronk would have went forward with WWE, would that have essentially saved Mojo? Just like, this is my guy, so
man, it's tough because that Mojo character, it's kind of it's kind of reverse because Mojo is a really smart dude. Like I didn't realize that, so now I've heard he actually financially advises some of the wrestlers and is very well spoken. Is very studious, and that's his end. And I wonder how much that character just had a ceiling at some point, right? Because even Cardona, Zack Ryder talks about that last pairing, right, was with Mojo, and they didn't like it. It didn't work out. It wasn't it wasn't a good pairing just of heads, and it was because partially the way Cardona tells it is Mojo was just asking a lot of questions. Mojo just wanted to do, and again, Mojo was a partier too, as you said, doing stuff with Rob Gronkowski, but I don't know if it was just elements of the era, or he who shall not be named, or simply sometimes you just outrun your run. But I'm sure he could reinvent himself and come back. I mean, the dude seems super talented.
Yeah, I think I agree. It's kind of everything I had heard is that person you saw on screen was him. He was just kind of over the top and got on everybody's nerves, and he just never connected. Like he tried his best to connect, and I felt like it just wasn't genuine. But I think it was him, but it kind of came across like so forced. And you know, it was just like, I get what you're trying to do, but at some point you got to be something different. And I had read that about the same thing with what Cardona said. They first off, they didn't like each other, legitimately did not like each other and get along. And I think would Gronk have helped them? I don't know, but their personalities may have been too close. But I think watching that promo, Gronk got that. Like he understood what to do. I don't know if Mojo did. Kind of feel like Mojo wanted to be a wrestler, but didn't get the characterization and everything else that made and the change, right? You think about, we've seen so many guys go through so many changes and adjust their personality and adjust. I mean, I'll give a perfect example: Seth Rollins. Nobody saw this type of Seth Rollins 5 years ago. This over the top character who really flipped a lot, right? Because he needed to refresh himself. Mojo, even though he wasn't there that long, he didn't get over ever really, and he just kind of stayed that one thing.
He had like one last weird run, right, where he went heel with the weird face paint and stuff. But that was dead on arrival, honestly.
It felt forced. It didn't feel genuine, and I think that's one thing I think about today's fan is it has to come across genuine. Even if it's over the top, it's got to come across genuine.
That's true.
Awesome. All right. Well, that's Rob Gronkowski. I hope you come back and do another really cool promo. Because if we unlock that guy, shoot, I'll buy a ticket. I'm gonna come over to you, Adrian. What you bring for us tonight? What football player?
All right, man. The guy I'm bringing, he's pretty polarizing in both wrestling spaces as well as football, mainly college football fan bases, and that's Pat McAfee. He was an All-American at West Virginia, got drafted by the Colts, became a Pro Bowler, All-Pro. Like the guy was a talented specialist. He was a punter. Plus, he was a big dude. Like when you actually see him up close, the dude's pretty. I mean, he's a big guy. But once he got out of football, he made pivots, and a lot of successful ones, I would say. And one of the most successful, becoming a media personality, whether it's on College Game Day now. He's a part of the flagship show on ESPN. People hate him, as in like diehard college football fans. They hate him, but I love him for some reason. I just love his energy. And it worked perfectly that he started to work for WWE. And the promo I'm bringing was probably the introduction of that partnership. The COVID era was super strange, but this was one of those highlights. Being able to develop this character, this persona of Pat McAfee, where he was basically playing he was playing the heel to Adam Cole, who was at the time hot babyface for NXT. And again, this is during the pandemic, super strange time of pro wrestling. And this promo, just the whole event should just be put in a time capsule, in my opinion, because of how overall strange everything is at this point in the world.
Well, hello, Undisputed Era. Last week, Adam, you said, please come see me face to face. Come back to the arena that I was kicked out of. I'm here. And I brought 28 years of NFL experience with me because I knew you better than you know yourself. I know that you go nowhere without these three stooges. I know that you would be nothing without these three stooges. And I know that you could never handle a face-to-face
with a human like moi all by yourself.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, you ready to start now? You ready to start now, Pat? Come on. You got McAfee. You gonna get the ring? No? The floor is yours, Pat. The floor is all yours.
Do you remember what happened 2 weeks ago when you and I were in this same NXT arena? Adam Cole? You probably don't. This is how it ended. I'll remind you. Shawn Michaels was checking for vitals on your soulless body right over yonder next to stupid Tom Phillips. Last week, you go on this entire rant about how you were being held back, that I took advantage of a situation, blah, blah, blah. I outsmarted you in your own house. In your own business, I outsmarted you. Then you went on an entire, you suck. Then you went on an entire rant about how I'm not special. I'm not special. You're the longest reigning NXT champ. You've wrestled all around this globe. You've wrestled in front of 5 people at armories, bingo halls, high schools, Japan, all over the world. And you got to hear, and you were the biggest star in this brand. What you call yourself? The king of NXT? You had all these people fooled. 400 and some days you were undefeated. Took me a minute and a half to knock your ass out. 1 minute. Knock your ass out. One swing of this foot. Done. Then you call me not special. How's that not special? I've never been in this ring before. Made you look amateur. I've made $1 million in 7 different professions. And you, especially you, stupid you, mustache stooge, in the ignorant wrestling community at home, you better hope that I don't stick with this profession, because this will be number 8 if I want to. And on Saturday, it's going to end the same exact way that it ended 2 weeks ago. You're going to be left unconscious after probably throwing a temper tantrum, after losing your mind, after losing your cool, because you and I are different level humans. You only gave me 2 weeks to train for this match. 2 weeks! Triple H gets on ESPN, the cerebral assassin who kicked me out, who says, well, Pat wants to be tough. I can make him famous. 2 weeks is all I'm going to need to beat you. And you're going to have to explain to the entire wrestling community how you lost to an outsider. Let me tell you how you lost to an outsider. Because you're great. In this world, you are. But I am next level. I am above you as a human. I am above you as an athlete. And on Saturday, it's going to end with one swing of his foot, meeting your face, sending it to the moon, and the only sound that any of these idiots in here and anybody at home will hear is boom.
Oh, I remember seeing this, but man.
All right, Ali, initial reaction.
I don't know if we've ever given a standing ovation to a promo yet, probably because we do the sitting, but I want to kind of stand right now and give it a standing ovation. Wow.
Yeah.
A couple of things stand out right away. First of all, as a fan of just good structure, we've talked about this before. I'm sorry that I bring it up. There is such a great, like, I can see like just this in paragraphs, and like it's just a great structure to it. But more than that is he doesn't let the crowd get to him early on. That settles in, even though shout out Tom Phillips, you're not stupid. But he acknowledges the crowd. He even tells somebody to shut up, right? and mind you, at that point, it was probably fellow wrestlers, but still, there was no rules. It was weird,
Right.
like you said.
Super weird.
But the fact that Cole never says a damn word on the mic, like he throws a little, a little seasoning in there, but nothing that's relevant. It's generic. And this guy is just like a locomotive, just going through. And the deadliest line is obviously at the end, but he's no longer talking about wrestling. But I love the fact that he elevates. He's like, as a human being, I'm better than you. And it's like denigrating almost the wrestling profession, because he even calls out the internet wrestling community, right? But this idea of like, I'm too good. I'm so good to come into this business that if I decided, I'd be great. That's how great I am. That's like how next level, to borrow his words. What strikes to me is this is a very serious Pat McAfee. We're so used to the Pat McAfee on commentary that's lighthearted, that's making jokes, that's making fun of Cole and whatnot. But this was a special time, both because everybody came to play ball, everybody understood the assignment of essentially studio TV without an audience, right? Where you could hear a pin drop quite literally,
right?
And I was hanging on this guy's every word, right? I can't wait to see if there was ever a selling of a show. Obviously, they weren't doing tickets, but I was gonna do this as an appointment watch, because I do remember that feud, and I do remember buying in, because at no point either, kudos to Adam Cole, he never denigrates the fact that Pat McAfee is there. He respects him as an equal, both on the mic and in that ring. And obviously the ring, he was very athletic and did some crazy stuff in there still, but you can't get away with that with a really safe partner who's willing to play ball with you. And
that's a fact.
A lot of celebrities come in and they don't know, they have two left feet in the ring suddenly, and even though they're super athletes, and you always need that other person to make sure that you are going to be able to play your role. So definitely. Very impressive, very great. And it just made me hear what Adam Cole is going to say. Maybe that was going to be the next week, right? Great sign of a great promo.
And the thing is, they absolutely delivered in that pay-per-view match. Like I know a lot of us, at least in our online groups and stuff like that, we were all like, "Yo, did you see Pat McAfee?" And it's a common misconception about punters and kickers that they're not athletic. All you do is kick a ball. That's your job. You got these guys making multi-millions, catching, throwing. They're the fastest humans on the planet. These guys got cannon arms over here. These guys are the biggest. And over here, you got the specialists. You got your kickers. You got your long snappers. You got your punters. They're not athletic. Pat McAfee is very athletic. And that whole feud, that whole NXT feud, not only showed that he was very athletic, but it showed the kind of personality that's made him a very successful, although extremely polarizing personality. Whether it's college football like College Game Day or WWE. I know plenty of wrestling fans right now that absolutely despise Pat McAfee on Monday Night Raw. Whereas you got a fan like me, I loved it. He's just goofy. He's having fun. He's a fan. Like, it's something that's extremely authentic when it comes to someone just marking out, that sort of thing, But Greg, what stood out to you with that promo? Or
so to kind of talk different about, I agree with everything you said, so I'm gonna go a different route. That promo told a story. He alluded to Triple H being on ESPN and saying, Pat McAfee wants this, we're going to give it to him. So he knew, or whoever produced it knows, we're going to have additional viewers. We're going to have people from ESPN. We're going to have people from NFL Network. We're going to have people from Fox Sports tune into this to see what Pat McAfee's going to do. Because while the pandemic was weird, ratings were high because we ain't got nothing else to do.
This is true.
So what did he do? He delivered and told a story of what happened 2 weeks ago, what happened last week, what's happening this week, and what's happening in 2 weeks. He touched on every piece of it. He also tapped into the subliminal of the real sports fan versus the wrestler. He downed pro wrestling because now if I have people coming over from ESPN and Fox Sports and others to watch, what am I going to say? I'm the NFL player.
Right.
I want you on my side. Hey, you're with me against this fake wrestler dude. And I'm like, damn. He totally told a story, but he also dropped certain names, I believe on purpose, because you have that audience. I dropped Shawn Michaels, I dropped Triple H because you recognize those. Let's call it what it is. That group who may come over, who are casual fans or may not be fans or lapse fans or whoever, they don't know who Adam Cole is. They don't know who NXT is. They don't know what Undisputed Era is. So that was what I was most impressed with. He kept that story. And the other thing that as I'm watching this, I'm like, man, how great would this have been in front of a crowd, an NXT crowd? Because the moment he downed wrestling, that crowd would have turned on him so fast.
Right.
And it would have been priceless.
That's a great point because it almost seems like he was coached to cut a promo in front of a crowd. Like his cadence, it was something he said like in this or next Saturday or something. He did a cadence where you could tell it's one of those, I'm saying this to get the build reaction with the crowd or whatnot. So it didn't hit like it should have hit with, you got 12 people in the crowd with damn masks on and stuff behind the plexiglass. Like it's completely different. But yeah, it's a perfect example of how strange it was during that time in all of our lives. But I mean, that's a great point that you bring up. That was a great opportunity for these companies to get creative because people are stuck at home and needed something to watch. Now, my question before I pass this back to you, Adelie, I want to ask both of you because I was watching this promo and I said, they did a really exceptional job of like not showing us too much of Pat to the point where a lot of us were kind of doubting his ability overall in that match, to the point where once we got to the match, he over-delivered because it was like, holy cow, this guy can do a moonsault. He did this, he did that. He was actually working. But my question to you guys, do you think because of the success of how they handled, whether it was training, preparation, building up for Pat McAfee's match with Adam Cole, did that really open up the doors for WWE to really go all in with some of these celebrities, non-wrestling celebrities, be it Bad Bunny and eventually like a Logan Paul?
Right.
Like WWE's always had a somewhat relationship with celebrities or, pop culture figures, but not like this.
No,
but after Pat, they kind of like, they were like, fuck, we're going to give you a Bad Bunny match.
Who's Green Arrow guy? What's his?
Yeah, Stephen Amell.
Stephen Amell. Yeah. But that was like the biggest, coolest thing. Remember, he was doing the whole thing with the Bucks. It was like he was completely on that side and stuff. And I was like, wow, this guy's gonna go do this. Like, I know he's still gonna be an actor, but he must have gotten the green light somehow. And that was my first instance in this modern era. I'm not sure when this modern era starts. Was it like 2017, 2018? Of that. And I thought nobody's gonna be better than this guy. This is it, right? And here we go, right? Logan Paul, right? Probably his brother, Jake Paul, once he gets over the boxing thing. But you're right, everybody you named, and I'm going to include Ronda in that in some weird variation of it, because Ronda echoes a little bit of what exactly you said, someone who was ultra protected, who was not overexposed in the beginning. What did she do? She did a flip on Triple H. That was her first physicality, but was a fan. Sat ringside at PWG. It was literally their girls' night out, which was to watch pro wrestling in Reseda. So you knew she was doing it. I know she trained here at Santino, but how many of those had to go through those avenues, right? Still go through independent gyms, independent promoters. But you're right. Everyone you spoke on now is part of the machine, right? Is identifying who gets it. Number one,
Right.
a Bad Bunny gets it,
Mm-hmm.
right? He absolutely understands the assignment and got set up for success, right? They're not going to waste that guy's time because they got limited time with them. So definitely open the doors, but also I think seeing WWE being this conglomerate now, this exposure machine, probably even brings more people in, especially like people that are kind of social media stars.
Definitely. Definitely.
So for me, I don't necessarily think it opened the doors. I agree with the Stephen Amell thing. I think, and it's really started with him. It started with Gronk a little bit, but you think of Amell, he's a huge fan. I watched a thing with him, and he was talking to it was almost like a cameo, but it wasn't cameo. It was something like that.
Mm-hmm.
He was talking to a girl, and he's like, I think for my 6th birthday party, I had a WWE themed party. Like he's a huge fan, so he gets to that point, happens to become friends with Cody, and they do their thing. They were supposed to have another match. I don't know if you knew that or not. They're supposed to actually
Mm-hmm.
have a full program, and that was a he who must not be named issue. And then, of course, he goes on to he was in the first All In. If you think
Yeah.
about it, he wrestled Christopher
Mm-hmm.
Daniels, and wrestled in other matches. I don't know if you know that he wrestled for Ring of Honor a couple times. So he did some other things. You take him. I think the difference is you look at Pat McAfee, huge fan, always been a fan, loves wrestling. You look at Logan Paul, who has said he's not a huge fan, but was a fan, but gets it. Like
Mm-hmm.
he knew what he was doing. So he got in there and got the bug and got hit with it. Bad Bunny, huge fan. So I think that's the difference is now you're seeing higher level people who are willing to step in there and do bigger things and put
Yeah.
the time in. So Pat McAfee retired and then put the time in. Bad Bunny had a house in Orlando, put the time in. Logan Paul puts the time
Yeah.
in. I think Rhonda put the time in. There's others who I think you're going to see it. Like they talked about Jelly Roll at SummerSlam
Oh shit.
and his
Mm-hmm.
little
Okay.
stuff. And afterwards, if you saw Triple H talk about him, he said Jelly Roll was here living a dream.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And they said he couldn't have been more excited to do whatever they asked him to do. He didn't care what it was. And he, even though he had that one little spot, apparently he came in early and did all kinds of stuff so he could do that. Like, oh, holy crap, I get to live a dream. The difference in the perception of pro wrestling is now I can come out as a big star and say, I love this.
Right.
And I think that's the difference because before you didn't have this level star jumping in there and saying, I
Right.
mean, you think about Bad Bunny at the time, the biggest star in the freaking world.
Yeah, for sure.
Arguably, not even him and Taylor Swift are, I mean, literally
Oh,
at that time,
100%. Yeah.
especially
Mm-hmm.
the largest stars in the world.
Man.
And he's like, I'm going on tour, I'm going to do this, and I'm going back to make sure I can get this match done.
Mm-hmm.
And you
And
know what? It's really cool you say that because I knew so many people that were just Bad Bunny fans. I'm like, I knew some of the songs obviously, but it's like you couldn't avoid it. So when he came in, I was like, oh, good for that guy. But the moment he started doing wrestling, all those fans who were non-wrestling fans, there was a good subset that came in because of
Yep.
him.
Mhm.
And that brings me to what the point that Greg made right now. It's almost like the more of those people that you have that are not ashamed
Mhm.
of being pro wrestling fans, because that's still taboo. Let's call it what it is, right?
Right.
I still kind of measure who I will say it, and I've even had some weird experiences lately where I'm like, I'm starting to save money for WrestleMania or whatever it is, and give me the side eye. I'm like, okay, I'm not talking to you about this, but there was a conversion rate there, and you had people who came over. You have the YouTube fans from Logan Paul. You're gonna have that Bad Bunny fan who they'll watch a match because he's in there, but they might stick around, right? They'll see some Boricuas in there, and they had this show in Puerto Rico. So I think it's really cool. I think it can only be good for the sport, for pro wrestling. To be
No, I
honest,
agree.
I don't like this idea of gatekeeping anything at this point.
Right.
But one other quick thing about that is we talk about. I think Stephen Amell sometimes gets a little bit of credit, not as much as he should, for being that celebrity who ran over the top. And then we kind of jump to Bad Bunny, but we skip over that Pat McAfee conversation a lot.
Yeah,
That's what I'm
And
saying.
dude delivered. I mean, there's been other
yeah.
deliveries, right? But
Yeah.
his delivered.
Right.
And granted, he was in there with Adam Cole, who at the time top 5 in the world, in my opinion, no
Right.
doubt.
Yeah.
You know, in ring, psychology, everything. But Pat McAfee delivered. But I think maybe it's pandemic, maybe it's NXT. I don't know. But we skip over that one.
Mm-hmm.
We jump right to Bad
Right.
Bunny, and I think
Mm-hmm.
he doesn't get he's definitely was underrated for what he did in the ring.
Definitely. Definitely. That's why I brought it. So cool. Awesome.
Wow, great choice. That's
Thank you,
great.
sir.
All right. Well, we'll keep the game going here. We're past the halftime, so now we're hitting the the straight. I see how I'm trying to get football references,
Yeah,
guys.
yeah.
Come on, give me
I
some
like
credit.
it. I like it.
We're at the 20-yard line. There's been 5 yard penalties. No, I'm just kidding. Greg, I always appreciate how you really think of things like a historian and you kind of give it context. So I'm really excited to see who you brought tonight for
All right, cool.
Gridiron Smack Talkers.
Yeah, so I went with somebody who made his name in football and probably made a bigger name in wrestling, but definitely made his name in football. And it's a long time ago, before any of us were around. But this person, so I pulled up some stats on him because obviously I did not know this, but he was drafted in the 4th round of the 1961 NFL draft.
Nice.
So he was out of Grambling State. He played for the Chargers for 4 years. He played for the Houston Oilers for a year, and then he played for the Kansas City Chiefs. He was a 3-time first team All AFL. So if you guys don't know, anybody who doesn't know, there was the NFL, there's the AFL, which is now considered the AFC and the NFC. So the AFL became they merged and they created 2 conferences, NFC, AFC. So think of equal to the NFL, the AFL, the American Football League. So he was a AFL champion, a 3 times first team All AFL player, 4-time AFL All Star. He's in the Los Angeles Chargers Hall of Fame, and he was on the San Diego Chargers 50th anniversary team. So think about that. He accomplished some things in the NFL and in football, in pro football. So this is Ernie Ladd.
Nice.
And
Big
Ernie
cat.
Ladd, for
Cool.
many of you who don't know, he didn't just wrestle. He did a lot of stuff behind the scenes. He was one of those territory guys who was all over the place, from NWA to WWF to the Mid South to Puerto Rico and WWC, all kinds of different places.
Here again, I come into the monitor. I was in the back and looking at the monitor. That drunk Indian was out here again. I know it was full of whiskey. Shut up out there. That drunken Indian got some feathers. Somewhere along the line, our camera again. I noticed one other thing. That Tommy Rich is still sticking his nose in it. Things that don't belong to him. That Maris Bowman is sticking his nose in it. Like Tony Atlas, we're going to send them back to Africa, no question about it. But that egg-sucking dog, drunken Indian, he belongs back on the reservation in a teepee. I'm going to pluck them fellas. I know Thanksgiving is not here, but I just told to pick me a day out and make my own personal Thanksgiving. Well, Indian, I know you're somewhere full of whiskey and looking at that television. Brother, I'm going to pluck them fellas. Tommy Rich, you got a leg that needs going to the doctor, and I'm going to send you there and work on it. Mass vomit. I'm going to pull that mask off you and let everybody know that you are a criminal. There ain't no question about it. What do you think about that, Gordon?
I think we can terminate our conversation and let's...
Gordon with the first avoidance of being canceled. The first ever recorded of I'm good.
we had like in sync eye raises like several times.
Yes.
But all that aside,
Hey, it was the time.
Right.
Georgia Championship Wrestling,
trust
the
me,
legendary
yeah.
Gordon Soley running the microphone. Out of lead, I'm gonna come to you. Thoughts?
I love Ernie Ladd. I mean, it's just he's golden. He's evergreen for me. Aside from what we just talked about, he gets it. He's looking at the camera. He looks the part. He looks great. Looks like $1 million. Does not look out of place. But at no point what strikes to me is like he is looking dead ahead. He's not being sidetracked. He's not playing to the interviewer, to the mic or whatnot. He's looking at the audience and to his opponent, right? But everything is like it is stereotypical in a lot of ways, but it works, right? It works for the era. And Ernie Ladd to me was someone that obviously is a Hall of Famer and whatnot, but growing up is not someone who I was exposed to too much later, right? Once I started really being, really getting into the depths of what the sport of wrestling is and exploring it on my own beyond tapes, but really through YouTube or whatnot. I got to see who he was, and this one strikes me a little different. It's a little bit more. I don't know if he's like earlier in his career or mid career, but there's a lot of energy there that maybe on the typical promo, a later early lad, Ernie Ladd, sorry, I didn't quite see. So that was kind of cool to see that fire.
Mm-hmm. That's
Adrian, what you got?
Hey man, that's like you said, that's my first time seeing that iteration of Ernie Ladd because past episodes I've mentioned Thunderbolt Patterson was one of my, that was one of my guys for sure growing up. And at one point they were locked together essentially, be it maybe booking more so, but that's what it was. They were a team. And what I remember of him was that smooth delivery, just smooth, calm. I'm not about to waste my energy. This was a complete opposite. He was fired up. He was basically taking shots at everyone. He named like at least 4 or 5 people that a lot of them were some problematic shots, but shots nonetheless. And I enjoyed it. It got a pop out of me for sure. But Ernie Ladd was 6'9" and 300 pounds. Imagine a dude 6'9", 300 pounds wearing that sequin jacket, talking his talk. What are any of us gonna do? Like if he just walks up and said, "I'm gonna send you back to Africa," I'm like, "All right, well, let me get my passport." This dude's 6'9", 300, man. What am I gonna do with that? But it's crazy that he's so accomplished as a professional athlete or as a football player to come right over and become this larger than life character, like 6'9", 300 pounds in that day and age, like massive. But that's an awesome promo. And Gordon Soley was hilarious. So.
Gordon played it so well. But what's interesting about him hitting that in the Georgia Championship Wrestling, he hit all 3 big stars. He went after Tony Atlas, huge here in Georgia, huge. Tommy Wildfire Rich, still huge to this day. It's still big.
That's my guy.
And Wahoo. So he never mentioned Wahoo, but I know who he was talking about. He talked about the Indian, right? So it was like, it was like, I was like, man, he just went after all 3 top baby faces. And if there was any doubt, I'm the heel. Just let y'all know I'm the heel. But here's the other thing that you get out of that. It is an old school promo, right? Yeah. Definitely talking about, talking them into the building. Traditional talk them into the building, right?
Right.
Listen to that crowd losing their minds. And there's not that many people in there. It's a studio.
Nope,
it's the old TBS studios.
Mm-hmm.
And having been there, it was only not even 100 people in there. But you can almost not even hear the dude talk. They were yelling so bad. And I'm like, that is heat, y'all. It's just him just going in on them. And just boom, Tommy, Wahoo. He talked about the masked dude. I'm not sure if he's talking Wrestling 2. I wasn't sure. I was trying to listen to it more.
Yeah, I think it was 2. Yeah.
And Wrestling 2 is huge here too. And I'm like, he just went after all of them. It was like, and I don't remember really. I was a little kid at the time, but I don't remember him in Georgia at all. But my exposure to him was like in UWF or Mid-South. But and to your point, most of the time when I saw his promos, it was more babyface. And a little bit, like you said, it's more smooth talking, a little bit more, like you said, Thunderbolt Patterson or Dusty or Superstar Billy Graham, that flow. This was just straight, nope, I'm taking you out. I'm sending you back here and I'm going to pluck these and do this and whatever. It's like,
oh God,
you ain't getting away with none of that today.
No,
none of it.
None of it. Not at all.
But also, you got to look at like you said, the time, the place, and who going to challenge him at 309 pounds at that time? It's like,
Jeez.
no.
Nah, that was
awesome.
funny. That was awesome. Yeah. Do you know
I
what
like
year that came from?
Ooh, I do not.
Not to put you on the spot or anything, but
Yeah, I'm not
I
sure
was
what
just
year that was
wondering.
from. I mean, it had to be early 80s or maybe even 70s because you got
Yeah.
to think about Georgia Championship Wrestling went away in 83, 84.
Okay.
Because when Vince took it over, it came back as WCW
That's right. Yeah.
or World
And that pocket was
NWA
not
World
long.
Championship Wrestling.
World
Yeah.
Championship. Yeah.
That TV window is not very for even to exist really in the grand scheme of things, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. Well, another one for the books, another pro wrestling promo via a football player, right? And someone who had a great career at that, an amazing career. We're going to pivot tonight. So we are now in the red zone. We are at the 1 yard line. And I don't want to leave anybody with more anticipation here as we look at the last promo for the night. And if you guys indulge me, we're going to take a little ride here. And you've probably seen this one. And if not, you definitely saw it at some point on ESPN. Football coaches are an interesting breed. They can be scary, they can be funny, and they can damn cut a promo most of the time. I've seen many coaches hired because they can fire up a locker room behind closed doors. But let's say in this case, that might have spilled outside of the locker room and got taken out on the media as it
If you're
were.
a child someday, you'll understand how it feels. But you obviously don't have a child. I do. If your child goes down the street and somebody makes fun of him because he dropped a pass in a pickup game or says he's fat and he comes home crying to his mom, you'd understand. But you haven't had that. But someday you will. And when your child comes home, you'll understand. If you want to go after an athlete, one of my athletes, you go after one that doesn't do the right things. You don't downgrade him because he does everything right and may not play as well on Saturday. And you let us make that decision. That's why I don't read the newspaper. Because it's garbage. And the editor that let it come out is garbage. Attacking an amateur athlete for doing everything right. And then you want to write articles about guys that don't do things right and downgrade them, the ones that do make plays. Are you kidding me? Where are we at in society today? Come after me. I'm a man. I'm 40. I'm not a kid. Write something about me or our coaches.
Goated. That's one of the greatest. That's one of the greatest post-game press conferences of my lifetime as a college football fan. Absolutely goated.
Papa Gundy can't go wrong with that. But do you guys remember ever seeing this the first? I mean, it got played. Ridiculous amounts at that point. But yeah, I love the energy and I love that protective attitude. He's a total college coach, absolute college coach. Can only work in that context.
Defending his quarterback, Bobby Reed. I remember Bobby.
There you go. Yeah.
Because they played against Georgia around that same time. If I'm not mistaken, the year before they actually played Georgia, and Bobby Reed stunk it up. He definitely didn't live up to expectation. But I can also understand you want to see your coach defend the players. But it's one thing about those coaches in the early 2000s. Those press conferences were some of the most unhinged behavior I've ever seen. These coaches, they don't do that anymore. They're making they're making so much money they could care less. Like Kirby doesn't snap on the press. He'll say something snide, he'll say something quick and be like, whatever. But they're making so much money. They don't nearly get as emotional on the press as those guys in the early 2000s, like Muschamp. Like Greg, I know you've seen Muschamp back in when he was at Florida. He used to go crazy. Like we were like, something's wrong with this dude. Which
for sure. But you also got to look at it from this standpoint. We're going down the wrestling promo, right? If you're a true babyface, you can't let the heel get under your skin. And the media, we seeing it playing out right now.
Yeah.
The media just played Dion like a freaking fiddle.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, that he allowed them to get under his skin. You think they're gonna let up? Please. That
Put
just gave
over
them
that
clickbait.
columnist. Yeah.
100%.
He put him
100%.
over.
So they learn how to play it. And so even though that's not necessarily a storyline, it's like, if I can get the antagonist and the protagonist to do this, right? If you have a Nick Saban, if you got a Lane Kiffin, if you got a Kirby who may acknowledge you but not acknowledge you, they're going to come in and make that little snide comment, but then people are like, wait, what is he referring to? Because sometimes you don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Or I think about when Bama lost to Georgia in that national championship game, and they're sitting at that press conference, and Saban said, hold up, I got something to say. And he made Bryce sit down.
Mm-hmm.
Because these young men right here are not going to be defined by. He headed off that negative.
Mm-hmm.
Kirby will head off that negative.
Mm-hmm.
Those coaches back then didn't have that foresight to do that.
Mm-mm.
So, but today the media has changed so much that then now they play it a different way. So it's kind of like, okay, I'm gonna still come out of this the babyface. How am I gonna come out the babyface? Because now they think different. You think, go back to that Gundy thing. You sit there and watch it. Where does your recruiting fall? At the end of the day, don't get it twisted. There's a bigger story here, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you start looking at, oh, he defended him. Oh, I want to go there. Somebody else be like, I don't want the fiery dude like that. They can't control his emotions.
Mm-hmm.
But now if I watch Nick Saban sit back and go, I'm going to defend you, but I'm going to calmly defend you in front of everybody. I'm going to watch Kirby do the same thing. I'm going to watch whoever, they come out and they start defending their players, and they do it in a certain way, in a style. You're going to see players go, I'm going to go play for him.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you can't control your emotion about this little CBS reporter that doesn't mean nothing. Do I want to play with you? Or maybe I do, right? And there's some who will, there's some who not. But it's like, players today pay attention to all that stuff.
Definitely.
So it's all a bigger storyline now.
And on the piece on media, I mean, we're seeing it in pro wrestling itself, right? Now WWE is opening itself up to essentially shoot interviews, right? They're inviting members of the press, and there's an expectation you're going to play ball, right? Or we might not allow you back. And even the media themselves is learning within the context to do kayfabe in a weird way. And if you don't, well, then you're not going to be cool with us. So it's an interesting time where even that relationship has developed. Where,
yeah, but what's interesting, go back to that Van Gundy thing. What's funny, it's kind of what we just looked at. Think about the 3 promos we looked at. I'm gonna go Pat McAfee and Ernie Ladd. Ernie Ladd was old school.
Yeah.
Emotion, yell, scream, call out people. That's Van Gundy. You could jump to Pat McAfee. I'm making sense. I'm telling a story. I'm keeping it calm. That's Nick Saban.
Right.
So you just went from, like you said, early 2000s to 2022, 23, 24, 2 different things, but how the times have changed and how the promos have changed in the media, and it's kind of like what we just looked at, right? Is it Ernie Ladd to Pat McAfee, two totally different worlds, but they both worked in their context at that time.
That's true.
I don't know if you were subconsciously thinking about, Van Gundy, the basketball coach, because he's a scrapper.
No, my bad.
Yeah. No, because I was like, yeah, he could go try to fight. Oh man, but all right. Well, that really sets us up for the big, football season is full swing, and we're loving it. We're loving the crossover, and who knows who's the next star to cross over from professional football into pro wrestling. And as we kind of take an end for the night, thank you for listening. For those repeat listeners, thank you for joining us again. And if the first time, check us out. Give us a like. Give us a subscription if you enjoyed yourself. And this is just more of what's to come. Check out the backlog here on Talking in the Building Wrestling Podcast. And this is just a great place to hang out. So, we love talking pro wrestling, but we change it up every once and again, like tonight. So join us again next time. Follow us on the socials, and see you on the gridiron.